Hello and happy Friday. How's it going, Josh?
Yay. Pretty good. How about yourself?
The enthusiasm in your yay there is just fantastic.
Dude, man, it's I'm sure like you, it's been a week, man. I don't even know. Today's like Friday already somehow. I don't know. Feels like we were
Yeah,
just here, but something
no
happened
joke.
this week. I mean, we're here, you know.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
it's been a wild week, that's for sure. I had pleasure of being in Chicago with some of our cybersecurity friends from the Pac State Security Boot Camp earlier this week, and yeah, we'll have one of them as a guest on today, which will be cool. But yeah, what did you get up to this week?
I had we had our quarterly InfraGard meeting last night, so that's always fun. Got to um, help do a kind of presentation on IR, and then listen to updates and things like that. Other than that, just a lot of different work through Monday through Wednesday. Setting various things up and kind of meetings with some people. Got some cool stuff coming down with Empath and those folks. So um, yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
exciting stuff coming up, but it's a lot of background work, as you know, everyone else in the industry can attest to.
Well,
But
and a big congrats to you. I saw the post this morning about you speaking at IT Nation Secure. So,
yeah, I'm excited about that. That was at the beginning of the year. Instead of a New Year's resolution, my wife saw this idea for a bingo sheet. So you make like 25 or whatever it is, like little free, little smaller resolutions and goals. And that was one of them I put in there as a professional speaking engagement at a IT MSP event, and I did get it. So I'm super excited. Thanks to I know and Tim Golden and Dean. You kind of pushed me and they said, hey, you need to get on that. So I did. And there's an opportunity with IT Connect Secure through a kind of a first time speaker mentorship program. So applied for that, got accepted, and here we are. So I'm very excited and working hard to make sure that the presentation is awesome and can live up to the hype.
that's awesome. Well, I'm sure it'll be the first of many for you. So, congratulations.
Yeah.
Let's bring in our guest host this week and let them introduce themselves. Ian, Dom, welcome.
Hey.
Ian, you want to give us a quick intro on who you are and where you're at in the world.
And all the chaos that I'm responsible for. Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me on. Like, it's really great. I didn't really know that there were 73 prior episodes. So, but my return after a hiatus of sort of to the MSP community, because now I'm a fractional CISO working for an MSSP, which has an MSP component to it, which is the much actual bigger component. So I'm over here in the UK doing fractional CISO work. And of course, I do have my MSP back in Canada, which is busy preparing for war. So yeah, that's my story.
Awesome. And Dom?
I don't even know anymore, but yeah, I'm Dom. I work at PAX8. I'm in Denver, where it was 80 some odd yesterday and snowing today. So I got back in town just in time from said boot camp. So I lead a professional services organization, and as you all know, I do a lot of cybersecurity learning and education on behalf of PAX8, which is definitely my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun this week. Thank you again for including me in that. That was for those that don't know, they had essentially a mock company get ransomed and go through a full incident response tabletop with the audience that was there this week.
I mean, I got to write ransomware for work. I was not mad about doing that event at all. It was super fun.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Josh, you want to kick us off with our first story?
Yeah, sure do. We got some fun ones this week. So this one stood out. It was one of the most upvoted and commented on this week here. Not giving their users their email passwords. I recently started working at a small MSP, mostly serving small businesses, and it's my first IT job that I've been learning quite a bit. One thing I've started to question is not giving users their email passwords. There's a few reasons that this was given to me. Users can't get phished into entering their password if they don't know it. I mean, makes sense, right? Given that email compromise is the most common way breaches happen, it makes sense to me on that point. I was told MFA is not crucial if the password's strong and the user doesn't know it. The risk is low the account gets compromised because, again, they can't put it in. My main concern, though, is that IT knows all of the user's passwords and they store the Active Directory, and that can be a liability. So what do you guys think about this security practice?
Well,
Dear
that
God,
was
no.
outside of the box, man. I mean, I get the logic of it. I am worried then, though, you know, you could look at other stuff to lock it down, like conditional access for sure. But yeah, it would prevent them from logging in from a home device, right? Because they don't know the password. They can't go to Office 365 and on the computer that's filled with crud. Yeah, I guess, you know, I go back to it depends on the business and it's a risk assessment, really. I mean, is that kind of what you want to do? But I mean, the privacy issue, yeah, that's a bit of a problem if only IT can gain access to the email account. I don't know, Dom, what do you think, man?
Oh, I hate it. I hate it. I hate it so much.
You hate it so much.
It just, you know, I could see the logic, but it reeks of inexperience.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I'm all ready. If I were going to be bad, Dom, and I've said this on stage, like I would only attack MSPs.
Right.
And boy, would I be happy when I found the MSP that literally had everyone's password.
Well, it's the
Right,
one
but-
to many, right? You know,
Right.
like that's why we're a big supply chain target, always have been.
Yeah. And it's just there's ethical concerns if you get the wrong sysadmin in the building. There's just a lot of problems with that. And MFA is still essential, right? I'm just gonna spray passwords if you don't have MFA, and eventually I'll get it.
Yeah.
Especially if there's something evil called webmail.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Well, and one of the things that we were demonstrating this week was about stealing of tokens. And I mean,
yeah,
whether or not the user has their password, it's not really going to protect you in that scenario either. So, yeah,
like session cookies, a big problem in the industry, big problem with security in general. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Josh, are you withholding passwords from the users?
Yeah, man, security by obscurity. Like you said, you can't. How do you enter them in? What's even better is because I charge by the hour. Every time the client needs to enter their password into something, they have to generate a ticket and call me, and that's 15-minute billable since they don't have that. So just racking up that
Solid
money.
man
Let's
with
go.
That car ain't gonna
That
pay
was
for
all
itself, Josh.
sarcasm. I hopefully.
Imagine
That's right.
the
That's right.
due diligence when you want to sell, man.
Oh man.
The yeah, that reminds me of that whole. I think was it Matt that did the bad advice only. Matt Lee did the bad advice
Oh yeah,
only
Beyond.
session.
Yeah, it's coming back
MSP.
this year. Yeah.
That's what you find on LinkedIn. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'm not sure that there's a whole lot more to add to that other than please don't do that.
It's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Please don't.
So what you're saying is you don't get a trust mark if you're rolling with that.
So here let's continue the conversation here. Now we've all poked fun at it, made our fun. We all know this is a bad idea, but let's put yourself in the tech's shoes here. He doesn't have the experience. I mean, this is his first job, but he's realizing like this isn't a good idea. And I just posted on a forum and I got absolutely roasted in this forum. How do I bring this to my boss and get him to understand? Because it doesn't seem like they are open to change. So like if you're in issues, what are you doing? Are you just looking for another job already, or how are you approaching this?
Well, I think from my perspective, I would go to I would network a little bit and find some pretty influential people, like call up my buddy Dom because everyone's got his number, and ask for his opinion or advice, maybe even talk to a couple of vendors and get their opinion on it, and then kind of go with a consensus. And this is a really difficult thing, especially for folks that aren't good at communicating, are not good at communicating to higher up, and are like intimidated by their boss. It's a tough one, man. I wouldn't want to be in that position. And Josh, I appreciate the fact that you're bringing us back to that mindset of just starting out and seeing something like completely bonkers and crazy and trying to call it out and trying to call out truth to power. I think we call that being courageous, which usually ends in an unpleasant situation.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it takes even experience, and that person is going to make a couple of decisions like that in their career. I know I have more than a couple. So I think it is, hopefully they're able to find really classical training, right? Of, going down, I call it cybersecurity academia to keep things simple, but that the what and the why about cybersecurity and less the how, because that's how I'm going to answer that question, right? Here's where it violates the what and the why. So you need a different how. And I think once you understand that piece, which is really equally part business conversation, it's much easier. You have a lot more data. I have a much easier time having executive level conversations if I'm backing them with data points, right?
Yeah.
I guess that would be my concern is if this is the existing security posture decision within this MSP that they're starting out in, what other security posture decisions have been made. Yeah, so maybe educating or trying to get education for the MSP around cybersecurity frameworks and so forth might be the direction to go to with this, but I would assume that there are several other things that would cause one to scratch one's head within this organization.
I think it's also a bit disconcerting because, like in what world is that a best practice? So like from a compliance perspective, you're way out there on the end of the pier and the storm is coming. So I think, what Dom said was really interesting, where he's thinking a little bit more like, a venture capital private equity guy than a security guy, saying, if these are the practices of that particular MSP, like, dear God, like how are you going to, exit, grow, M&A to prosperity if you don't look like the other MSPs, from at least from a compliance perspective?
Yep. All right. Well, let's move on to our next subject here. Next story. So, how are you proving the value of cybersecurity services to clients when nothing happens, quote unquote? One of the weirdest challenges we're dealing with now is the better our security services work, the more invisible they feel to clients. We've got 24/7 monitoring, email filtering, endpoint protection, regular patching, and because nothing gets through, some clients think we're doing less. A couple even asked if they still need the service because they haven't had a breach. We're using reports and occasional threat stats, but it still feels like a tough sell when the very success of the service makes it seem unnecessary. How are you all communicating ongoing value of cybersecurity when things are quiet?
Just turn it off for a month. Kidding. Don't do that. Please don't do
Throw
that.
some user IDs into the dark web forums, man.
Yeah.
No, but you know what? Like, this is a great question because this is one that, like, inevitably at every MSP conference that I've been to, the question is, how do I demonstrate value? You demonstrate value by getting your director of managed services or customer service rep to visit that customer and walk them through what the reports mean. Don't just send the reports because they have no context. Oh, we got 300 phishing emails that weren't delivered. Like, no one cares, right? But make them care. Because you can pull out some stats and show, oh, by the way, this law firm just got breached. They had to pay $60,000 to a regulator. You're a law firm. Guess why we have MFA, right? Because it would have prevented their breach. So I think you've got to connect the dots on the activity that you do as an MSP and show like, hey, we patched all these boxes. Great. But here's the number of 0 days and here's the number of actual Kev references to stuff under active exploit, and this is why we patch. So I think, you know, there is that loop of connecting the dots and just like spraying, you know, number of service tickets that we did, number of like vulnerabilities what we fixed without that context is, you're right, the customer will look at it and go, yeah, well, you know what, nothing's happening, so I don't know, man.
I agree, but I also had another set of issues because as we started to modernize clients in my shop, we were moving them into, Azure AD at the time and the rough iterations of Intune at the time that we made work. But we were modernizing clients to a point where they didn't need us for things to like work. So help desk tickets, we had exemplar clients where they went down 65-70%. So the value is really a different story. And my pivot was really to have, again, those business conversations. Like, I'm a huge nerd, but I think one of the most valuable things I ever got mentored about was how to have executive business conversations. And that was, hey, what are you actually getting out of your technology? What are your business's goals and how do we drive that? And what the ideal outcome is you've been able to demonstrate some sort of top line growth or bottom line improvement. But in any scenario, you want to at least be able to have a business conversation that shows the technology is less of a cost center and more of an enabler. And cybersecurity is a part of that, right? If your technology enables X amount of business, if it all gets pwned and disappears, it now disables X amount of business. So I think there's a balance there. But I just like business conversations when I'm talking to business owners, right? I don't care how many tickets we close. Like, is your business doing well? Are you meeting your goals? And how are we helping you do that?
Yeah,
I still like your idea of just turning it off, though. I mean,
that's the dramatic way to try it. Just the FAFO method.
I mean, well, it's been the internal struggle of IT since the dawn of time. Is everything works? What are we paying these for? Something breaks or something happens. What are we paying these guys for?
And that happens
So,
in
like you said,
enterprise
being
IT
able
too,
to-
by the way. Like,
Mhm.
it's a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. The way that the other thing to kind of add on is you're showing not just the reports and all the fancy things that are stopped, but align if you have a security program, it should be aligned to a framework and showing kind of where the progress is and showing, because there's more things to it than just having MDR and email filtering and things like that go into it, such as policies and documentation and just building overall mature practices for your organization. So showing them, hey, that this is where you were, this is kind of what we need to do, look at next to just modernize and mature your organization through operationally and cybersecure wise is another way to show your value. Like, hey, and again, that, you know, this is something that I've shared before with our maturity model based off of CIS, but it's made easy. Like, it's showing the value of, hey, you're aligning to industry best practices. As part of that, you know, there's all of these security things, and yes, you're safe, but again, you know, you're increasing your maturity through that, which from a business outcome just makes you look better.
Right.
So I'm just going to bring my HR puppet along to all of my PBRs in the future and explain what we're actually doing there. But to your guys' point, like it's really about the education and communication with those clients on a level they understand, on things that actually impact them. And I think this is where a lot of MSPs struggle, is they are throwing out those service ticket metrics and things that just don't resonate with the decision makers that they're having those TBRs with, or if it's a VCIO or VCISO engagement. A lot of them, unfortunately, are passing along information that just isn't pertinent. I think that you can demonstrate your value with those. Go ahead.
I got an incredibly interesting take from a COO once, and he said, because we used to do ticket metrics, and then this guy actually took me out of it, but he said, these tickets tell me how many problems I had in the last quarter or month or whatever. Like it tells me how many problems I had and how many times I had to call you. Like, nobody wants to call the help desk. Like, you're having a bad day if you're calling the help desk. I think we have to keep that in our minds too. Of, I would much rather invest that client's money in making sure they don't have to call the help desk. But then you have to demonstrate to the client that they had less bad days, and that's a harder point to do. There's no hard number on that if you don't really work it out with the client.
No, 100%. All right.
Well, I think we got that one. So let's go ahead and go to our next our news story here. So this one has been the hot topic this week here. It is a roller coaster to follow, but getting into it, CISA extends funding to ensure no lapse in critical CVE services. They've extended MITRE's funding for 11 months to avoid any disruption to the Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures, which is CVE program, which plays a key role in cybersecurity. The move came just before the contract was set to expire on April 16th, raising concerns about possible widespread impacts on vulnerability databases, security tools, and critical infrastructure. In response to long-standing concerns over sustainability, CVE board members launched the nonprofit CVE Foundation to help ensure the program's independence. Meanwhile, ENISA introduced a European vulnerability database promoting a broader multi-source approach to vulnerability tracking and management. Did you guys follow this? What are anyone? Let's say
I followed it while we were doing a show about cybersecurity. It was a bad time. Henry, you were there. But anyway, sorry, Ian. Go ahead. That was rough.
No, man. I mean, I got some comments in a Forbes article for Cato Flattery on this particular thing. So first of all, that headline itself is a complete gaslighting and misinformation, disinformation campaign, because what it didn't say is they just lost 500 people, okay, from the groups, the various groups involved in vetting CVEs and whatnot. So let's back up a little bit. One of the major approaches that the Trump administration has taken is this is a, in quotations, free government service that needs to become a commercial service in the eyes of the administration. Okay. Too much free stuff that's going on out there. We can argue about whether that's good or bad or what. It doesn't matter. The point is, from the CVE perspective, it didn't need to be a hand grenade into the room, right? If you wanted to slowly transition away from this and like allow the void to be filled, announce that there's a 90-day, kind of process to unwind this, right? Not like, oh, you know what? Tomorrow we're out of money. Too bad. See you later. Now, on the other side of the coin, maybe that was the negotiation tactic for the for CISA to come around and say, listen, like, do you realize what just happened, guys? And all of a sudden, the American homeland is now at far greater risk if we don't have this body that centrally coordinated CVE in response. Because I would tell you, it has played an instrumental role in like Log4j, Heartbleed, and all of these other things. In first of all, making sure that our only threat intel source isn't Kevin Beaumont, right? Grossy the dog, right? And that there's other opinions out there. And also, it's not the US, it's not me, Ian, Dom, Josh, or Henry saying this is a big problem. It's the US government saying it's a big problem. And that kind of postage stamp, if you will, on the envelope that says patch your shit, I think is super important. So I am very disappointed in the coverage of this by the InfoSec press in general, but specifically, I think it takes time to like bow shock. You know what I mean? Like there's when the star goes supernova, it takes a while before the fragments of that supernova impact other things, and that's what we're faced with right now. Not that I'm emotionally connected to this at all.
No, I think you guys are right very much on this. Is like it's done a lot of damage already, regardless of the fact that they're extending things. The 11 months is obviously that's not at the same level that it has been, and it's already undermined a lot of the trust that this had in what people had in it, and I think you're going to see a lot of these splinterings that further happen as people try and come up with different solutions on what's next.
Well, the trust is gone, right? It's an 11-month extension doesn't mean anything. Just in my mind, I'm expecting in 11 months to feel the same way I felt this week, right? Like that's kind of, I've got a countdown clock going in my head now because nothing's going to be done. And I also don't think very many people understand just how important MITRE is, right? Particularly like in our MSP space. In the broader cyberspace, it's a little more well understood, but do you really know what MITRE is and what its function is in this world? Like all of those vulnerability management products we've started to preach do not function if MITRE does not function, right?
Well,
Our
it's
ability
not,
to collaborate.
It's not just the vulnerability management. It's all of your EDR, all of your MDR. Right. Those things are looking at things based off of the MITRE attack framework.
And our ability to talk about it. Like if you and I find a problem, we can go get a CVE number. We're under a protected, well understood methodology of discussing vulnerabilities, responsible disclosure. Like the entire sort of evolution of how we fix software problems is built on the back of MITRE. So that going away would be catastrophic. Like I don't know that any nation in the world could build that quick enough for it to matter. So to Henry, your point, you're going to see all these little splinters because we're all just waiting for 11 months from now when we have to do this all over again. So it's not great.
I want to touch on that nonprofit.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. How do you get trust in that?
Well, that's the other thing is like it was developed and then immediately the people in our security industry looked up the registering domain and it was a Squarespace that was registered like literally the day of, like minutes after the announcement. And there's not enough information to see, kind of who's behind it and like you said, the trust of that. So it's
a bunch of North Korean remote workers is who said it.
But the other thing too is like looking at it, this, and obviously I'm a fan. Like the MITRE and CVE program is essential to this, but it does highlight almost a single point of failure and how, what is our option for continuing? At this point, to Dom's point, 11 months and I don't know if we have any trust or faith to see what happens, but like if it doesn't, like what do we do? Like what's our kind of backup plan or backup plan? Obviously it's not us to come up with it.
Yeah. What I find interesting about this is because of the lack of transparency around it, I wonder how much of this was malicious versus just ineptitude of understanding the true impact of that financing behind this program. So not to get into the political realm of it, but obviously there's lots of cuts that are happening, and some of those I don't know that are fully thought out as far as where that snowballs to.
Politicize it. I know we're short on time for this story, but like NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, I think I got that right. Like, does all the research around how to make you less likely to die in a car accident.
Yep.
I don't know anything about that except for I'm supposed to wear my seatbelt and like get my airbag replaced if there's a recall. So I would never go and proclaim to be like, oh, we're spending too much money on this, or you don't know what you're doing, because I don't know what I'm doing in that space, right? I rely on that sort of body of research to force people to make a car that I can drive and get where I'm going. So it's the same concept. We should be relying on CIS and MITRE and CISA and those agencies. We should be able to help us run cybersecurity practices that get us from A to B without dying, right? With the reduced likelihood of dying.
Would be nice, yes. All right. Let's move on to our next topic so we can keep things flowing here. Ian, you want to do this one?
Wow. Okay. So I started my MSP back in December, and I've gotten a couple decent agreements under my belt, but I'm quickly realizing that the MSP owner life might not be for me. What? You don't like the 150-hour work weeks? Dude. And then you got 25 hours of like accounting on top of that. I won't read the whole thing verbatim, but it looks like he decided to partially close up shop and in the process of transitioning off all my clients. Wow. So within the same post with 2 days ago, it's like, I'm starting my MSP. I got some contracts. I'm done. I'm out. Peace. I don't know, man. Like, that seems a little bit like lack of a plan, a lack of market research, a lack of talking to some folks from like GTIA, CompTIA. Like, it just like, maybe do your research first. I feel sad in a sense, because I know a lot of folks will come out and I got my CH. I'm now going to be a pen tester, right? And I'm going to set myself up and I'm going to do the thing, right? Like, man, I love the idealism of the youth, but unfortunately, I think the cold, hard reality of how difficult business and IT services is, kind of surprised this individual. I don't know, like, Henry, maybe we'll go back to you because you're probably, well, between you and Dom and Josh, you're probably more senior in terms of like MSP owner.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It just means I'm a glutton for punishment, maybe.
We're just more disgruntled. Is that what that means? Like,
yeah.
What's that called?
I think we're just more disgruntled.
Yeah.
But I mean, how did you get disgruntled? Is it like that idealism of youth? I can do this, and then like falling down off the tricycle of MSP, or is it more like we've just seen the same mistakes made over and over again in business and in IT services, and you're sort of at the point now where you're pleasantly surprised if you walk into a server room and it's not like 98 degrees Fahrenheit and the boxes are all beige.
Well, Ian, to your point earlier, I think the fact that it's such a low barrier to entry, that there's a lot of MSPs that they don't understand what it means to be a good MSP or what it would take, and so they see the dollars that, oh, hey, I can make some quick bucks hopping into this industry, and I kind of know this stuff. I have people that want to pay me, and they don't put much thought into it until probably in this gentleman's case a little late, of like, oh shit, there's a lot of stuff I should actually be doing. This is not all it's cracked up to be, and
like paying taxes.
There's that whole thing of like MSP on a post-it note, and I'm an MSP. Like there's a lot of them like that.
Well, and that's just that we've said it before, the low barrier entry, like any sysadmin who, or whatever, like anyone who says like, oh, I can fix computers, I can do computers, just can become an MSP. And then they realized, oh wait, I can't just fix computers. I have to like do sales and
I have to do a
marketing, and
business. What?
now I have to do like accounting and all of the business stuff that goes behind it. Like there's way more that goes into it. And even though it's a low barrier to entry, I mean, at least this person is seeing like, okay, maybe I can't do it. And especially as like a side gig, I don't like, I've had plenty of side gigs, and usually it's been restaurant as the side gig. But I don't know how you could do MSP as the side gig. You just don't take calls during business hours.
So my OG
yeah, go ahead.
business plan was consulting, which does work as a side gig because I could take a call at 5:30, right, and continue to get paid for that. And I went into MSP because consulting, like, you got to keep pipeline full, you gotta keep those sort of deals coming in the door that are all one time, and then you literally have nothing to sell because like you are the consultant. So it's not much of a business. I'm not telling people to go there unless you just want to work to death. But getting into the MSP space, I think you guys like went way down in my Reddit history and like one of my first posts and just reworded it because like I had the same moment and I pushed through it, but I was like, holy crap, this is different. And for me, like I started realizing sort of the awesomeness of what MSPs do, and the realization that I sort of had was I have a lot of livelihoods in my hand, right? Especially nowadays, like, and taking that and applying it that way, I was like, okay, I have to get outside the tech, the consulting side, and really understand the business. And that's what I enjoyed. Had I not done that, I would have hated it and I would have been out way sooner than I was. But I got frankly obsessed with merging the tech and the academia and the business side of things. That's kind of why I kept going. And then I did get tired of it, and I came PAX 8. So there's that too.
What are your thoughts, Jack?
Yeah, it's a business. It's a lot of work. I mean, I already said like, hey, the side project, you couldn't do it, and especially again when you're the owner, kind of like everything falls on you and you have to do it, and it is a lot of work, especially on top of a job. I mean, it's no stranger. I mean, I've shared my story before, especially when I had my second kid, and our daycare bill was more than our mortgage at the time. And I was working in an MSP, and that's when I was like, well, like my wife had to quit her job because we were losing money from having her work. And then we obviously needed more money than I was able to provide. So I had to get a second job. And I was literally working from 8 a.m. to 11 midnight, 5 days a week, and then working on the weekends. Like I've put in the grind. It sucks. And then eventually, just having the one job with the restaurant, being part of the store opening team and a general manager, the hours didn't get any better. Like if I had any time off, it was on my phone, it was doing stuff. And there is definite burnout with that. And it man, there's no way to put it. It sucks. I'm grateful for the experience. I've learned a lot from it. I've taught, but like, there's no sugarcoating it. It absolutely sucked, but I had to do it to, pay the bills and to get where I needed to get. And I'm in a better place now, which is fantastic. But if you're not willing to, I guess, put in, or you don't realize like how much actual work goes into this, and it's not just something that you can kind of do here or there. Like I think to Dom's point, consulting, it could be a great side gig. You take a call and do a project and kind of can work on it whenever, or assist with that. But like full on MSP work plus a day job, that's a lot. I mean, you have these other businesses livelihood in your hands. If their tech goes down, they can't operate. And like that's a responsibility, and it's not something that should be taken lightly. So don't try to do it as a side gig. And I get trying to start out and like you want to have the cash flow and the revenue,
a little capital, when you start to be. I don't think it's a high capital business, but it's not a zero capital business.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
But it also, to your point, kind of gets into our next story, which we'll let Dom take. But it's like, we don't just make widgets. The widgets change. So Dom, I'm going to let you take this one.
How do you compare tools? This is fun. So we're researching tools for disaster recovery. That's also fun. And you found it difficult to visualize everything against your priorities. Thought I'd put the whole thing on a board and see if it helps. Okay.
So
All
this
things
this
considered, a
is
little more
hold
towards
on.
Veeam.
I'm going to step in real quick. This one isn't in the MSP. It was in our IT
IT
managers.
managers.
But I think it leads to a good discussion about, regardless of what tool he's going for. We remain agnostic on this show, but I think it's just a conversation that we should have, to the MSP community, of not just buying whatever shiny widgets out there. Or I'm going to pick on Dom real quick, just because of where you work. Like, just because Dom tells me, hey, we got this new partner and it's really cool, you should sign up. Like, there should be a little more work into it. So just kind of getting the process on what maybe your guys' process on, comparing the tools when it comes time to evaluate, or your thoughts, or maybe even Dom can share some insider stuff on like MSPs, just, hey, we need this to check a box, or how are you seeing people compare tools?
So I work at a marketplace, and you've seen like how often we put new logos in the marketplace, right? It's completely overwhelming. But it's also like it creates a sea of opportunity, because you could take the quote best security tool in the world and put it in front of everyone. There's going to be at least one business that would operate horribly with that tool, right? And that's like, it's far more than one, by the way. But like, so what I always tell people is look at what you have in front of you in terms of options. And I usually pick on the quadrants. Like pick the top right of the quadrant, all those tools, and which one of those are you going to operate best with? Because even if we look at like the EDR space, an EDR is an EDR is an EDR. They approach things a little differently. They're a little more efficacious in zone A and a little less efficacious in zone B. They tend to equal out. Which one can you actually operate your business with, right? Can you build procedures around that everyone on the team can follow, that you can integrate into how you onboard and manage and offboard clients? That's what it really needs to be. Because if you buy a new tool and you can't use it, right? If I need a knee surgery and my doctor has the most expensive scalpel money can buy, but he can't use it, I'm not coming back with a knee, right? So that's kind of what I tell people is like, look at it from operational efficacy, because the product efficacy, at least on the top, 4 to 6 tools you hear about, is probably going to be there. I love this approach to the comment, by the way. Can we actually do that? Like, is that a thing we can pull off?
I'll say this on tooling. So first of all, it's a bit disconcerting that we're talking about DR, because that, in my mind, is the Alamo, man. You got to be solid on DR. That is like, you cannot lose a customer's data in this day and age, or that it's very likely in the United States you'll get sued. In pretty much every other jurisdiction, they will never deal with you ever again if you lose your data. But having said all that, I think one of the big things, and for me, I look at it is, and Dom hinted at this by saying, this is how does your business run with it? I will click on that link, and it should take you to a page of, how do I bill my customer with this in a non-insane and efficient way, right? I can't have expense of the month club where I don't know what the cost is going to be, right? So like, per storage, per gig, all of that stuff, no. Per client, fixed price. Cool. Right? You know what I mean? So look at it from your perspective of like, how do I, manage my costs going out? Because I've always said this, the most important KPI in the MSP business is cash flow. Everything else doesn't matter. If you can't make your payroll obligation because you put all your cash out there on tooling that you have to pay on a monthly basis, you're failing as an MSP, right? So that's just my thoughts. And I think, Dom, you did a great job. And I love PAX 8, by the way, bro.
I mean, I do whatever Dom tells me to do. Just Dom. But,
that's horrible advice.
Dom, you got to hook me up with some of that good stuff.
But I think this also gets to discussions around due diligence process for your vendors when you're onboarding and vetting them, shared responsibility matrix with your vendors and what that looks like. But I think we're also seeing a bit of a shift for the good that's encouraged by cyber insurance, where people are starting to look at frameworks and like, okay, what does this actually achieve for me at the end of the day? So I know we dropped a link in chat there about the PAX 8 community-based CIS handbook that several people put time in on creating, but the idea being that what control in this framework is a tool actually helping to achieve? And if it's not, why are you using it?
Yep. Yeah, I can jump on that too. And again, I've shared multiple times, and it's kind of, spoiler alert, what I'll be speaking about at IT Connect Secure is, again, the framework is I made, for us MSP CIS made easy. And when I was, brought in to build out and enhance the security program at my MSP, that was like, okay, well, we need to align to a framework. And then once we had that, what are the business processes? What are the business outcome? Figure out that and how you're going to do things, and then find the tool that supports those. If you're aligning your process to a specific tool, well, if that tool gets acquired, if it goes away, if something happens to it, then what? Now what do you do? Find out what you want to do, how you want to do it, and then go find a tool that goes with that. There's more strategy and things, and more strategy, less tools. It really is kind of what it's
Josh,
about. And
that's why we're on Proxmox now, right? Like, we used to be a VMware shop, and then got the bill and went, oh my god.
Yeah, and there's, and it was fun going through the, hey, like, I need this because I'm trying to meet these controls, in our framework. I'm looking for a tool that can meet, this here. And if your tool didn't fit that, then we're not a fit. And not only that, having the non-negotiables of like, this is what I need it to do. This is how it fits in our organization. And it was definitely a journey going through a bunch of different vendors. And then the ones who, the persistent sales guys are like, oh, well, it doesn't do that, but it does all of these cool things. And it's like, cool, that's not what I'm after. So it just doesn't fit. But yeah, so to wrap it up, align to a framework. First off, figure out your business processes, what you want to do and how you can achieve them, how you want to go about it, and then find a tool that can support those, that can make it more efficient. To the point about the COGS or the OPEX, bringing it back to the restaurant industry, your cost of goods in a restaurant is pretty easy. It's all of your food inventory and those things, plus your labor. Well, the MSP industry, it's a little bit different. Like, the only real kind of product you have is your licensing, and then obviously your labor. So again, finding out what that those cost of goods are, so kind of what to mark up and what fits in with your business operations. All right, we're going to the last story here. This one comes to us from the sysadmin subreddit, but it definitely is very relevant to MSP. So another junior left. Leadership blamed culture fit. I've seen this before. This person, another junior sysadmin this week. They were a sharp person, eager to learn, asked all the right questions, but 3 months in, they were overwhelmed and burned out. No proper onboarding, barely any support, and every team just funneled their leftover tickets that way. The leadership's response, I guess they weren't the right culture fit. The truth is, they were more than capable, but the environment isn't. If your idea of throwing someone into chaos and hoping they swim, you're not building resilience, you're building frustration. Good people leave fast when they feel like they're being set up to fail. How many of us have lived this or seen this? I mean, this is this only in the MSP industry, or
meetings will continue until morale improves?
Yes.
110%. Like, this to me is the essence why people are just absolutely crushed in the early stages of their career, is because it's clear that this organization isn't interested in mentoring or building capacity. They are interested in essentially sucking the very life out of their employees, to the point where that employee wants to look for something different. And I think that is just a real kind of sad indicator that at the lower end of the industry, folks are looked at as being disposable. And it's really unfortunate. And I my heart goes out to people that have been in that position. And I certainly don't run my MSP like that. I'm always delighted when somebody, does get an extra opportunity, and I tell them, don't leave for anything less than 10K over what you're making now. And work at them with it, because for MSPs in a lot of cases we don't have a lot of flexibility. The P&L, the profit and loss, is enough to like keep the lights on and whatnot. You're not Anybody that thinks MSPs are making huge amounts of money out there, I think maybe 1%. It's sort of like everyone goes to Hollywood and becomes a movie star, right? They don't talk about the stuff that the people that end up in the adult film industry,
Right.
right? So like from my perspective, I just like, think about what you're trying to achieve as a business and organization. And it sounds to me like this organization just does not value the people, and overvalues, I guess, maybe relying on just process and volume to try and make up for that. I love to hear your guys' thoughts on
Well,
this, because
so
breaks my heart.
there's two lenses, because this was an RSys admin, and I poke around on there every now and then. If you really want to be like entertained and saddened at the same time, K12 sysadmin is a great subreddit. But anyways, they have it way harder. I'm just telling you. But from that perspective, what is IT in the enterprise? Traditionally, it's a cost center. It costs money. It's tough. They have to fight and scrap for budget. So it creates a situation where, as a leader, you have to extract as much value as you can get out of each individual role.
Yeah, Rafi.
Yeah. So that's sort of one piece of that puzzle. That's what IT is in essence. That I think that's slowly starting to change, especially for some forward-thinking organizations. Now in the MSP space, I think back to our friend that started a shop as a side hustle and it's not working out. Imagine he had sort of grown his shop some. What, or he or she, what is their skill level in terms of leadership, being able to mentor, being able to build and structure a team, right? That's a whole different thing. If you're one of those sort of tired of tech, started business, do you have leadership skills? Do you know what building and motivating people looks like, and how to do it, and how to have hard conversations and great conversations? And then going back to doing the math of the business, if you want to pay people more money, you have to charge customers more money, which is
Yes.
two hard conversations at the same time, right? So it's just really hard. And I think MSP gets a really bad rap because they're stuck in this P&L circle. But also, I do think there's a lot of very inexperienced MSP leaders that don't have the people leadership experience required to grow a team.
It's two different skills.
It very much
100%.
so.
And there's a third skill that no one's been talking about here, right? Third skill is customer service.
Yes.
Right?
100%.
If you're good at customer service, but you're kind of not great as a tech, and you need some time to learn and figure stuff out and write stuff down, every MSP tech should have a notebook where they write shit in. Okay. Like, it annoys me if I'm sitting there in a meeting and I have to tell people, write this down, right? Like, things like just being aware of the SLA and being able to ask listen, can this wait for like 3 or 4 hours? Because right now I'm really back up against it and trying to get this other customer on board. When you emotively connect to your customers like that and have that ability, you know what? You can accomplish a lot and not put those customers at risk. If you're just an asshole and not returning phone calls or not answering emails, then you know what? Bad things are going to be coming towards you.
Yep. And I want to go back from a manager perspective on this too. If like the fact that they're like blame the employee for leaving is a sign of a not great manager. If I have an employee that left, even in the restaurant industry, which had notoriously high turnover, if an employee left, that was on me. What did I do wrong? What did the company do wrong? How did we fail them as an employee, and why did they leave? And did it come down to, is it onboarding practices? And again, restaurant MSP, there's a lot of crossover, but there are times when it is the when it is the employee. Like we did, if you can confidently say our onboarding processes, we set them up for success. Like, we led them to water and all of this, and we tried.
I mean, I've made bad
and,
hires.
like, yeah, it
Oh,
does happen.
yeah.
It is on the employee side, but in this particular case, I mean, it's
Actually,
not. I mean,
I'll challenge
go ahead.
that. I think it's still on the leader, unless you didn't make the hire.
Yeah.
But if you made the hire,
Yeah.
the employee's the wrong fit, we need to work on how do we screen, how do we catch that,
Yep.
right?
100%. If you don't have, after I'd say 2 or 3 hires, if you don't have an employee handbook, if you don't have like employee policies and stuff like that, you're not really a company. Right? Like you're just a collection of guys that go and do
Gaggle.
IT and try to make some money, right? Like,
Yep.
so you're right. Like after a while, after getting your nose rubbed in it, you know where to go poop, right? Like, and that comes from that experience. That comes from grinding it out. It comes from like one bad hire, and now that's why we can't have nice things, right? And now we scrutinize
large
the
part of our handbook
expenses.
exists because of mistakes I made and learned along the way.
Brother.
Oh, yep.
Is there another way to write a handbook? Is there?
In the handbook, there's a reason things are in the handbook. There's always a story. So, all right. Well, we got 2 minutes here, so let's go ahead and go to plugs. First off, Ian and Dom, thank you so much for hopping on, especially last minute. It's been a fantastic hour of going through these and sharing your expertise. But what do we got coming up? Lots of stuff coming up here. Now that the weather's a little bit nicer, we're getting into conference season. So one thing I always plug is irgame.ai. We do a free game at the last Friday of every month. Please check that out. PAX 8. I think that Henry
happened this week, but I had the pleasure of doing that with Dom this week. But Dom, you guys are going to be doing that again this fall?
Yeah. I don't know that I'm allowed to say the city yet, but I'll tell you it's going to be in November. It's going to be a very similar real world security event. It should be super fun.
Awesome. And I will say for those that weren't able to be part of it this week, it's something you're going to want to catch when that comes back around. So. And then we've got Rejection Con coming up next week. I saw a thing on LinkedIn going around that Wes Spencer's going to karaoke or something if we get 800 people signed up for that. So be sure to do that. There is all that money is going to charity. So please do take part. And then Josh, are you at MSP Geek Con with me?
I will not be able to attend that because I'll be going to the 2 that are after that, so I won't be able to make MSP GeekCon. So if you wanna share that, yeah, that's MSP GeekCon will be a great event. It's heavily focused in on more of the resources for the technicians in your organization, and obviously a great community. In a community-led event. So, and then I'm going to be hopping across the pond here in a few weeks as well for the MSP show at the Excel in London. So if you're around,
I will be there too. I'm speaking too.
Awesome.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Man. So we're gonna go out. We're gonna get some tattoos.
I'm in.
All right.
And then, as always, we'll be at IT Nation here. Looking forward to catching Josh's session there.
Awesome. Yeah. Yep. I'm just now say it, if I can officially say it now. I'll have a speaking session there. So next show, I'll have that cool little blue font that says Speaker Josh Hohbein after it. But very, very excited for that, and hopefully see you guys there.
Awesome. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today, and as always, quite a pleasure. So. Have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
See ya.
See ya.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.